Today's video is about vectors. I'm going to go through some of the different nuances of creating designs in COREL012 using vectors for output with your laser. Just to start out really basic, let's say you have a circle like this. If we were to output this directly to RDWorks, you would wind up getting a basically completely filled in circle. We can do that by using the simulate feature in RDWorks. So what we're going to wind up getting is, helps to set the mode to scanning and hit simulate again, and you're going to see it just fills in this circle completely. Now let's say that you wanted to have more of a outline of our circle. So what would you do in this case? All you need to do is you need to draw another circle and place it within the first circle. This creates an inside and outside border. Now if we send this to RDWorks and hit simulate, you're going to see that the area that it engraves is just the two circles. It's the inside of the two circles, rather. And the more you go inward, so if I were to hit Control D, which kind of remembers the resizing that I did and everything, we can just shrink that down a little bit more. And if you hit the shift key, it'll resize it in aspect ratio. Now I'll just hit Control D a couple more times. And if I hit simulate again, close RDWorks because it's not working quite right. I had the inner circles here selected, so I needed to deselect it before I sent it because it was only sending the inner circles. So now if I simulate it, you can see you get kind of a target or bullseye effect. You could very easily offset these to get different effects. If I were to eliminate all of these lines except for the double inside circle, let's see what would happen. So we're going to leave a double circle inside there, but just one outside circle. And if we simulate, that's what you wind up getting. It uses the two outside borders to fill in. And then it sees another circle there, but no border inside that, so it's going to fill that one completely. This should give you a little bit of an idea how vectorizing images and designs works in RDWorks. Now, a circle is okay, but let's do something a little bit more fun, like a butterfly. So now that we've got our butterfly, I've already gone through the process of converting it to a vector and gotten rid of the background colors, as I've shown in some of my previous videos. If we send this to RDWorks and do a simulate, and I gotta select scan again, and we do a simulate, you can see what areas this is actually going to vectorize. Now this part of the tutorial kind of gets into creating negative images of things. One method you could use is we'll just draw a rectangle around the butterfly. And we're just going to send everything to RDWorks. Well, let's see what happens. Now we want them both to be the same color, so we're just going to go here and make sure we highlight that and change them all to black. Now if I go and simulate, you're going to get the opposite version of the butterfly engraved. Instead of it engraving the black areas, it's going to engrave the areas that were white. I'll show you the difference here in a second. And if we go back into RDWorks and we remove that rectangle, you could also remove it from COREL012 and resend it to RDWorks. I'm just taking a shortcut. Now you see the difference in the engraving. I'm going to put them side by side so you can kind of see them. Here's the differences in the engraving if you have the rectangle around it versus just leaving the butterfly as the vector. With it just the butterfly, these areas here will be what's engraved. However, with the rectangle, it reverses the whole image, and the areas that get engraved, again here, is the area shown in white. Now maybe you don't want to do a rectangle. Maybe you want to do something a little more interesting. One thing that you could do is, let's say you were putting this on the top of a little decorative box and you wanted to do that kind of a reverse engraving look. Well, in that case, you would just set this box to the dimensions of your box. Let's say it's 8 inches by 5 inches. Well, now the entire top of the box is going to wind up getting engraved with the inner portion of the butterfly wings being the parts that's engraved, whereas the black lines would look like they were raised up. Hopefully that makes sense. Now the other thing you could do, we'll get rid of that rectangle, and I'm going to make a duplicate copy of this butterfly. And I'm going to drag him over here, and then this particular butterfly, I'm going to go and I'm going to break the curve apart so that I can select just the outline of that butterfly. So notice I just have the outline here. And I'm going to resize that up just a little bit. So let's just say 5.5 inches. Oops, I need my aspect ratio locked, so because I want it to resize equally. And I'm going to not fill it in, but leave the outline black. So now you could drag this over your existing butterfly here. We're going to get rid of these because we don't need them anymore. We only wanted that outline. Now we have a couple of points here that didn't quite resize. This maybe wasn't the greatest example, but I can fix that. So I'm just going to grab some of these data points here, the nodes, and rearrange them a little bit. I'm just going to make them a little bit bigger. It's not going to be a perfect job here by any means, but I want to show you kind of some of the neat things that you can do. And then we'll grab these over here and move them too. I just wanted the antennas kind of outlining, the antennas of the outline going around the antennas of the actual butterfly. That's good enough for example purposes. Send it to RDWorks. And now you can see the butterfly with that outline around it. Now if we do a preview on it, again, it came in as 2 different colors, so I'm just going to make them all the same color and hit preview. Now you can see the effect that you get just by doing some vector changes. In this case, the outline of the butterfly that we resized up aids in reversing the engraving of the entire image. So what kind of real-world applications would you use this for? Well, one could be lettering, for example. And I'll show you another interesting technique. We're just going to do someone's name here. Kind of a large font. Got to have something a little more interesting than that, though. Yeah, that's not bad. That's better than the first one I had, which I think was an aerial or something. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to convert this to curves. So now each letter, well, I got to break the curve apart because I want each letter to have its own, be its own object, so to speak. So now I could go and use something like the Docker for doing contours and stuff like that. And it is right here under the effects toolbar and contour. It's a little bit different on different versions of COREL012. So now to see some of the interesting things that you could do, I'm going to do the letter J first. This is your offset or your steps. And I'm going to do 0.025. Maybe I'll do 0.05. Now if I hit apply on this, you can see that it's recreating the letter J going inside or towards the center of the letter. You could also increase the number of steps that you do, so it does something like that. In this case, it's not going the direction I want it to, so I'm going to say fill to the outside of the contour, and I'm going to hit apply, except I don't need 5, so undo, I only do 1. And I'm going to do that for each of the letters. If it'll let me. Looks like I have to do each letter individually, so I will do each letter individually. Now here I'm going to have some overlap, which is a little bit of a problem. So I'm going to grab this and just move it over a little bit because I really don't want any overlap on these. I could do the weld thing, but I don't want to in this case. So now if we send it to RDWorks, make sure I select just the name, otherwise I'm going to get the butterfly that's still on the page. And hit preview, you're going to get just the outline of the lettering engraved. Versus if we had just left a single line contour on it, you would wind up getting the full letter engraved. So I hope this has given you some ideas on how you can use vectors and how you can use COREL012 to get different effects for your projects. Have a great day.